Very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome back to Civics second year class. Today we will discuss the questions which are, sometimes they are asked like unexpectedly. They are very rarely asked. Till yesterday we have discussed all the most repeated and important questions. Okay, from all the chapters. Today we will discuss some of the questions which are they can be asked. Sometimes unexpected questions we get in the paper. Okay, so these are some unexpected questions. We don't expect, we leave this question saying that this won't be asked, and sometimes this question will appear in the paper. So chapter wise we will discuss all the unexpected questions. Okay, so we'll start with your first chapter, that is Indian Constitution. In that the most important questions we have already discussed. That is, for 10 marks we have discussed salient features. Okay, then we have discussed Independence Act of 1947. We have discussed non-cooperation movement. Okay, then we have also discussed the most repeated question, that is causes for the birth of Indian national movement. If these questions are not asked, then you can expect this question. Okay, so what are the various phases of Indian national movement? So when we are saying Indian national movement, it is our freedom struggle. Okay, Indian national movement, when we are saying, it is about our freedom struggle. So what are the different phases? Phases means you can also say stages. Okay, what are the different stages of Indian national movement? The Indian national movement, it can be divided into 3 stages. Okay, it can be divided into 3 stages. The first one is moderate stage. The second stage is extremist. Extremist stage. And your third stage is Gandhian stage. Okay, so these are the 3 stages of Indian national movement. The Indian national movement, it started in 1857, the revolt of 1857. Okay, Indian national movement started. So we will discuss about Indian national movement now, different stages. So till 1885, after 1857 till 1885, okay, we were fighting with the Britishers in 1885. In 1885, Indian National Congress was formed. Okay, Indian National Congress was formed, and our freedom movement took a different shape. So Indian national movement, it was organized from 1885 to 1947. So India's freedom struggle is the greatest non-violent movement. Okay, India's freedom struggle is the greatest non-violent movement. So the first stage is moderate phase or moderate stage. You have a question for 2 marks. Moderates. So moderates, this period was from 1885 to 1906. This period was from 1885 to 1906. Dadabhai Naoroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Surendranath Banerjee, Umesh Chandra Chatterjee were some of the important leaders of this period. Now, these leaders, they never opposed the Britishers. They did not oppose British. They always, maintained good relations with the Britishers. Okay. Their methods were prayer, petition, and mediation. Okay. They always believed that with request, with prayers, and by mediating, we can fulfill our demands. Okay. So here, during this period, national movement was confined to English educated and middle class people. In English educated, middle class people, they started this moderate stage. They adapted peaceful methods and they always cooperated with Britishers. They never opposed the Britishers. They always cooperated the Britishers. And to fulfill the demands of these moderates, the British government, it passed an act, that is the Government of India Act 1909. Okay. This act, Government of India Act 1909, this act, it gave representations to Indian in the legislative bodies. Okay. It was a demand of our leaders to give representation to the Indians in the legislative bodies. To satisfy the demands of the leaders, the British government, it passed this act, that is Government of India Act 1909. As the reforms were made during this period, the moderate stage is also known as reforms era or era of reforms. Okay, many changes were made in the legislative bodies. Indians, they got representation. Okay, so that was moderate stage. Okay, it was from 1885 to 1906. Then comes your second stage, that is extremist stage or phase. Extremist phase. This was from 1906 to 1919. Okay, now this extremists, they never cooperated with the Britishers. They were against the Britishers. Okay, and they were also against the moderates. They felt that the moderate leaders, they are the agents of the Britishers. Okay, their methods were different. The important leaders of moderate stage were Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal. Okay, they were called as Lal, Bal, and Pal. Okay, Lal, Bal, and Pal. So they were the important leaders during the extremist stage. Okay, they always, opposed the Britishers. They were against the methods adapted by the moderates. They felt that these moderates, these leaders, they are the agents to the Britishers. And these extremists, they also opposed the partition of Bengal. They also opposed the partition of Bengal and they organized Vande Mataram movement and Home Rule movement. They organized Vande Mataram movement and Home Rule movement. These were the two important movements organized by the extremists. Okay. They followed the unique method of protest. The method was different and their demand was complete freedom. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, he said that Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. Okay, they did, moderates, they were happy with the representation in the legislative bodies. That was their demand. But extremists, they said that we want Swaraj, complete freedom. Okay, that was their demand. If you see the methods of extremists, the methods adapted by extremists, it was unique. Okay, they adapted unique methods, like they boycotted the British goods and they used Swadeshi goods. They boycotted British goods and they used Swadeshi goods. They boycotted government offices. Okay, they boycotted government offices. Passive resistance. Okay, they were resisting to the Britishers. Okay, they were not following, but not actively. It was passive, slowly. Then organizing religious festivals to attract people. As Britishers, they imposed ban on organizing public meetings. Okay, they imposed ban. So what they did, they started organizing religious festivals, like your Ganesh festival. It is a long festival of 10 days. So they started, putting up Ganesh pandals, and people were attracted to those pandals. When they came to these pandals, the leaders, they told the people about the policies of the Britishers. So this is how they, attracted people through religious festivals. And they organized Bandh and Hartals. Okay. They encouraged native education. Okay, they encouraged native education. So with these methods, they could pressurize the government, that is British government, and to satisfy extremists, to satisfy these leaders, they have passed an act, that is Government of India Act 1919. And they also cancelled the partition of Bengal. Okay, so this is your second stage. First was from 1885 to 1906. Then from 1906 to 1919, it is extremist stage. Coming to the third stage. Coming to the third stage, that is Gandhian stage. From the word Gandhian, you can understand that Mahatma Gandhi was the most important leader during this period. Now, this Gandhian stage, it was from 1920 to 1947. It was from 1920 to 1947. And the important leaders during this period was Jawaharlal Nehru, Sarojini Naidu, B.R. Ambedkar, Rajendra Prasad. All these were the important leaders of Gandhian stage. And they worked under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. And we all know that Gandhiji, he believed in non-violence. So this non-violence and satyagraha were used as the important weapons during this period from 1920 to 1947. So they organized various events, okay, or protest movements during this period. Like the first one is non-cooperation movement. Okay, this non-cooperation movement, it was completely a non-violent movement organized as a protest against Jallianwala Bagh incident. And this was from 1920 to 1922. Okay, non-cooperation movement, it was from 1920 to 1922. And this movement, during this movement, they adapted two types of programs, positive and negative programs. Positive programs, you can say use of Swadeshi goods, okay, collecting 1 crore rupees for implementing the activities of non-cooperation movement. That you have learned, non-cooperation movement answer. Okay, distributing 20 lakh charkhas. And negative programs were boycott of British goods, boycott of British officers, boycott of government-sponsored meetings, okay, boycott of elections. Okay, that is negative program. So non-cooperation movement, this was the first movement organized by Mahatma Gandhi against the Britishers as a protest against Jallianwala Bagh incident. Okay. Then the second movement which was organized was protest against Simon Commission. Okay. Second movement was protest against Simon Commission. Why Indians they protested against Simon Commission? 2 marks question you have studied. Okay, Britishers they appointed Simon Commission to review and to suggest measures for the implementation of Government of India Act 1919. Okay, Sir John Simon was the chairman of this commission. That is why we call it as Simon Commission. And the Congress leaders, they opposed Simon Commission. Why did they oppose? Because Simon Commission, it had Englishmen, 7 Englishmen. No Indian was the part of this Simon Commission. So, because of that, the Congress opposed Simon Commission and it gave slogan, Simon go back. Okay, they gave the slogan, Simon go back. So that was the second movement. Then next is civil disobedience movement. Okay, which took place from 1930 to 1933. Okay, so Britishers, they have passed, salt laws. They made laws on the salt also. So against this salt laws, Mahatma Gandhi, he organized the civil disobedience movement, which is also known as salt satyagraha. Okay, to violate salt laws or salt tax, salt satyagraha was organized in 1930. So how did he break the salt laws? Gandhiji, he went to Dandi village and there he, along with his supporters, he produced salt. Okay, and a protest was carried all over the country. Okay, hartals, picketing took place all over the country. So that is civil disobedience. Disobey means we are not going to obey the laws of the government. That is why it is called as civil disobedience. Okay. The next is Round Table Conference. So British government organized 3 round table conferences, okay, which was attended by Mahatma Gandhi, but they could not reach to an agreement with the Congress leaders. Okay, they had discussions, but they could not come to an agreement with the Congress leaders. So all the 3 round table conferences failed. Then the last stage of the Gandhian stages, Quit India movement. Now this Quit India movement, it took place from 1940 to 1944. During this Quit India movement, Gandhiji gave a call to the people to do or die for the freedom of India. Okay, so during this Quit India movement, Gandhiji, he gave a call to the people of India to do or die for the freedom. And all the important leaders were arrested by the Britishers. Okay, and people from all the corners and sections of India, they participated in this movement. So now the Britishers, they were unable to face the movement. They decided to grant independence to India. And they passed Independence of India Act 1947 in the British Parliament. India, it got independence in 1947. Okay, it became free from the control of Britishers. It became an independent state. Okay, and Gandhian stage, an Indian national movement came to an end. Gandhian stage as well as our freedom struggle, it came to an end. in 1947 with the independence of India. So these are the different movements organized during the Gandhian stage. So you will get a question. You can get a question for 5 marks. What are the various movements organized during Gandhian stage? Okay, it is again an unexpected question. Okay, if it is asked, how will you write? Okay, from this answer, what is this question? Phases of Indian national movement. From this answer, if you are learning the third stage, that is Gandhian stage, the third stage, your Gandhian stage, you can write. If a question is asked, what are the various movements organized during Gandhian stage? So, same 5 points. Okay, same 5 points. That is, non-cooperation movement, protest against Simon Commission, civil disobedience movement, roundtable conferences, then Quit India movement. Same you can write for this question. What are the various movements organized during Gandhian stage? Okay, so if you are learning one question, you will be able to answer 2 questions. Let us now move to the next question from your third chapter. Second chapter, you have only fundamental rights, directive principles. Coming to the third chapter, you have write about functions of Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India, it is the highest court of justice in India. Okay. In India, we follow integrated and independent judiciary. That means the judiciary is interrelated. So the highest court is Supreme Court. So if you see the composition of Supreme Court, it consists of 1 Chief Justice and 30 other judges. Okay. 1 Chief Justice and 30 other judges. That is the composition of Supreme Court. So Supreme Court, it consists of 31 judges. Out of this 31 judges, 1 is Chief Justice and 30 are the judges, other judges. Okay, I hope I am clear with the composition of Supreme Court. Now, what is the main function of the court? That the main function of judiciary or the court is to provide justice to the people. This is the main function of the judiciary, to provide justice. Other than that, it performs some other functions. So if you remember, we have discussed, under your 4th chapter, you have discussed powers and functions of High Court. So the powers and functions of High Court and Supreme Court are more or less similar. Okay, so let us see the powers and functions of Supreme Court. The first is original jurisdiction. Okay, under original jurisdiction, Supreme Court will settle the disputes between central government and the state governments. If there is dispute between the central government and the state governments, then they can directly go to Supreme Court. They can directly go to Supreme Court. Then it also settles the disputes between central government, okay, and some of the state governments on one side and other states on the other side. So in first point, we have seen that it is between central government and state government. Central government and state government. That is the first point. If there is any conflict, any dispute between central government and state government, it is resolved in Supreme Court. In second point, we are saying that if there is a dispute between the governments, that is central government, and few states on one side and other states on the other side. Okay, that is the second condition. And it will also, tries to settle the disputes between one state and the other state. Third is, if there is a dispute between the state government, one state and the other state government, that is also settled in Supreme Court. So under jurisdiction, it will settle the disputes between the government. In simple words, we can say that it will settle the disputes between the governments. The governments can directly go to Supreme Court under its original jurisdiction. Okay. Now, coming to the second point, appellate jurisdiction. Okay. Under appellate jurisdiction, Supreme Court, it will settle the cases coming from High Court. If you're not satisfied by the judgment given by the High Court, you can appeal in Supreme Court. So that is why we are calling it as appellate jurisdiction. So what kind of cases it will settle? Civil cases, criminal cases, and cases involving constitution. Okay, civil cases, criminal cases, and cases involving constitution can be taken up by the Supreme Court. So that means each and every case from High Court will go to Supreme Court? No. No. See here what happens. After the judgment is given by the High Court, the High Court should certify. Okay. The High Court has the power of certification. It should say that you can appeal to the Supreme Court. Then only you can go to Supreme Court. If High Court, while giving judgment, it says that this is the final judgment and you cannot go to Supreme Court, you cannot go to Supreme Court. So High Court has the power of certification. With that, it will certify the cases that can be appealed to the or taken up to the Supreme Court. Okay, so that is appellate jurisdiction. Under appellate jurisdiction, it will take up the cases coming from the High Court. Okay, when can you approach Supreme Court? The High Court should certify that you can appeal to the Supreme Court, then only you can appeal in the Supreme Court. So civil cases, criminal cases, and cases involving constitution can also be taken to the Supreme Court from High Court. Next is advisory function or jurisdiction. Advisory function. Under advisory function, Supreme Court is empowered to give advice. See, advisory, from this word, it means something related to the advisors. So the Supreme Court is empowered to advise to the President on the matters of national importance. President can seek advice from Supreme Court. So it is the advisory function of the Supreme Court. Next is Court of Record. Okay, Supreme Court acts as a court of record. All the judgments of the Supreme Court are recorded, are maintained. Why? They can be used as guidelines in the future cases. The judgments given by the Supreme Court are recorded so that it can be used in future for similar cases. And those judgments can be used by the High Court also. Okay. So that is court of record. Next is issuing writs. The another function of Supreme Court is issuing writs. To protect the fundamental rights of the citizens, the court has power to issue writs. Writs means orders. Okay, the court has power to issue orders or writs for protecting the fundamental rights of the citizens. Okay, the next is contempt of court. The Supreme Court can punish those who criticize the judgments of the court, those who disrespect the judgments given by the court. Okay, what is contempt? It is disrespecting. Okay, so if any person he disrespect or criticize the judgments given by the court, or if a person criticize the or disrespect the judges, then that person can be punished under contempt of court. Okay, a case will be filed against such person under contempt of court. That means you're not obeying the judgments or orders given by the Supreme Court. You are disrespecting the judiciary. Under that, the person will be punished. That is called as contempt of court. Next is review of judgment. So, the Supreme Court is empowered to review. You know what is review? To recheck any judgment given by it earlier. Okay, it can review, reopen the cases. It can review the judgments. Next, Supreme Court, it is the guardian of the Constitution. What is the function of judiciary? It is to interpret the law. So, Supreme Court, as the guardian of the Constitution, it is the interpreter of the Constitution. It is the interpreter or guardian of the Constitution. Next is judicial review. Okay, the Supreme Court has the power to decide whether the law passed by the Parliament is constitutional or not. Okay, Supreme Court will decide the law passed by the Constitution is, law passed by the Parliament is constitutional or not. Okay, Supreme Court will decide the laws passed by the Parliament are constitutional or not. If it is found to be against the Constitution, that is, if the laws are against Constitution, that is unconstitutional, then the court will declare those laws as invalid. Then that law will be declared as invalid by the Supreme Court. That is judicial review. Okay, then you have PIL, public interest litigation. Okay, cases can be filed in Supreme Court in the interest of general public. Okay, anybody can file a case in court under PIL, public interest litigation, and court will decide whether that case can be taken up or not. But you can file a case in the interest of the general public. Next is independence of the judiciary. So here, the judiciary, the court, it is free from the control of the legislature and the executive. So, the services and the salaries of the judges are protected. Okay. And the judges cannot be removed from the office unless Parliament passes an impeachment resolution. Once the impeachment resolution is passed by the parliament, then the president will remove the judge from his office. Okay, and here the Supreme Court, it can also act as head of the state. Okay, head of the state. But in India, it is not applicable because we have office of vice president. So the countries where you don't have the office of vice president, there the Supreme Court will act as head of the state. That is, the Chief Justice of Supreme Court will act as president when there is vacancy to the office of president. It is only when the position of vice president is not there. Okay. Now coming to the next question, what is impeachment procedure? What do you mean by impeachment? Impeachment means removal. Okay. So the president can be impeached through impeachment resolution passed by the parliament. Okay, parliament should pass this resolution, then only they can remove the president. So this impeachment resolution, it can be introduced in either house of the parliament, either in the Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. The impeachment resolution can be introduced either in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. And this resolution has to be signed by not less than 1/4 member of the house which is introducing it. Suppose Lok Sabha is introducing this resolution, then 1/4 members of Lok Sabha should sign it. And while passing this resolution, not less than 2/3 members of the house should accept it. Okay. The first house, suppose it is introduced in the Lok Sabha. Okay. It is signed by 1/4 members. Okay. That again, 2/3 members should accept that resolution. Then the second house investigates about the charges, allegations against the president. And the president can defend himself personally or he can appoint somebody to defend him. Okay. If the second house passes the resolution with 2/3 majority, then the president stands to be impeached or removed. Then the president stands to be removed. So once the 1/4 members of the house sign that, 14 days prior notice is given to the president. Okay, after 14 days, 2/3 majority should pass the resolution, and from there it will go to the second house. And the second house will investigate about the charges or allegations. During that investigation, the president, he can defend himself either personally or through a deputy. He can appoint somebody to defend him. And if the allegations are, proved during the inquiry and the second house passes the resolution by 2/3 majority, from that moment, the president stands to be removed. This is impeachment resolution. Okay. Very rarely asked. Okay, but you cannot ignore it. You should know it. What are the questions we have discussed? We have discussed 3 questions. Okay. Various phases of Indian national movement. If you are learning this, then you can again answer another question for 5 marks, that is various movements organized during Gandhian stage. Then we have also discussed functions of Supreme Court and impeachment resolution. how president is removed? That is the question. Okay, next is, what is collective responsibility? What is collective responsibility? Okay, so it is one of the features of parliamentary form of government. Collective responsibility means all the ministers along with the prime minister are answerable. Responsibility means, responsible means answerable. They are answerable. Okay. So prime minister along with all his ministers as a team are responsible or answerable to the lower house, that is your Lok Sabha. Okay. Each minister individually as well as collectively responsible for the decisions taken by the Council of Ministers. So whatever decisions are taken by the Prime Minister and his ministers, each and every individual minister and collectively all of them are responsible to the Lok Sabha. Minister cannot openly oppose the decisions of the cabinet. Here, no minister can say that this decision was not taken with my, consideration, my consultation. They cannot oppose. Okay, they cannot oppose the decisions taken by the cabinet. If they criticize, if they criticize the cabinet decisions, then that minister has to resign or he will be removed from his position. Okay, if the minister, any of the minister criticizes the cabinet decisions, then he has to resign by himself or he will be removed from his position. So, as all the ministers along with the prime minister are answerable to the parliament, here we say that parliament controls the executive. Okay, as the ministers along with the prime minister, they are answerable to the parliament. We say that parliament is controlling the executive. When we say executive, here it is prime minister and all his ministers. So this is collective responsibility. Sometimes you will get a question for 2 marks also. Okay, let us see the next question. Powers and functions of State Council of Ministers. Okay, see here we have 2 terms. We have 2 terms here. Union Council of Ministers and State Council of Ministers. Don't get confused here. Okay. So when we are saying Union Council of Ministers, it is Prime Minister and his ministers. Okay. Prime Minister and his ministers. And when we are saying State Council of Ministers, it is Chief Minister and his minister. At state level, they are State Council of Ministers. At central level, they are known as Union Council of Ministers. So what are the powers and functions of State Council of Ministers? Here the question is State Council of Ministers. Okay. So Council of Ministers at the state level, which work as a team under the leadership of Chief Minister belonging to the majority party or ruling party, are appointed by the governor. So the team of chief minister, the team of chief minister is appointed by the governor. So to whom will he appoint? Chief minister, he will advise the governor. Okay, chief minister, he will select his ministers and he will advise the governor to appoint them. So the council of ministers at the state level, they are appointed by the governor on the advice of the chief ministers. Okay, so if you see the council of ministers are of 3 categories. Okay, so first is cabinet rank, ministers of chief minister is their head. Okay, then ministers of cabinet rank, they are equal to the chief minister. Then ministers of state rank, and sometimes you will have deputy ministers. Sometimes they'll have deputy ministers. Okay, so if you talk about council of minister, this council of minister is headed by chief minister at the state level. Okay, and the ministers are divided into 3 categories. That is cabinet rank, ministers of cabinet rank, ministers of state rank, and sometimes, not compulsory, sometimes you will have deputy ministers. Okay, so let us see the functions of State Council of Ministers. The first function is formation of the state government policies. Okay, the Council of Ministers, along with the Chief Minister, they will, formulate the policies for the development of the state, and all the important decisions of the state government are taken, okay, during the meetings of Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister after thorough discussions. Okay, after thorough discussion, the decisions are taken by the Chief Minister. Okay, he will conduct the meeting with the ministers. He will have discussions with them. Then he will take the final decision. So all the important decisions of the state government are taken by the Chief Minister and Council of Ministers. Chief Minister, he is the head of the Council of Ministers. Okay, so they formulate all the policies of the government. The next is maintenance of administration. Okay, it is the responsibility of the Council of Ministers to implement all the laws which are passed by the state legislature. Okay, what is administration? Implementation of the laws. Okay, to check whether the laws are being properly implemented or not. So, State Council of Ministers are responsible for the implementation of the laws passed by the state legislature. Okay, then next is coordination function. So, all the ministers, they have to coordinate among them, their departments. There should be coordination between the departments. All the ministers who are heading various departments, they should coordinate so that they can implement the policies and programs successfully. So there is coordination function. The next is power of appointment. So the Chief Minister and his Council of Ministers, they play a very important role in appointment of various officers like Advocate General, Vice Chancellors of the universities. So basically, governor will appoint these people, but on the advice of the Chief Minister and Council of Ministers. Okay, so role in lawmaking. The Council of Ministers, they play an important role in lawmaking. It is the ministers who introduce the bills in the legislature. Okay. The next is financial functions. It is the ministers, they prepare the financial policies and the budget of the state. It is not only one minister, that is finance minister. No, all the ministers together, they sit, they discuss, they see the, they check what are the requirements, which department requires, more funds. Based on that, they will prepare financial policies as well as the budget of the state government. So these are some of the functions of the State Council of Ministers. Okay. So let us now discuss what are the electoral reforms, okay, adapted in India. See, India, it is the largest democratic country in the world. So it has its own, problems, especially in the process of election. Like, what are the problems which we are facing now? Influence of money power, active involvement of criminals, misuse of the office. Okay, so all these are some of the challenges which India is facing. So for that, some reforms were suggested. It has appointed various committees to, suggest the reforms. So we will discuss the various electoral reforms. The first one is criminalization of politics and prevention measures. So people from criminal background that are directly entering into politics. So political leaders, they maintain close relations with these criminals. Okay. And candidates contesting in the elections give information relating to the criminal cases. So what can be done here? People with criminal background should, when he is contesting for the elections, he should give the complete details about the criminal cases on him. Okay. So some committees suggested that candidate with criminal background should not be allowed to contest in the elections. So what is the suggestion? How can we stop the criminalization of politics? We can stop it by, banning the candidate with criminal background from contesting the elections. We should not allow the person with criminal background to contest the elections, and the political party which gives ticket to such person should be de-recognized or deregistered. So the political parties, if they are giving tickets to the criminals for contesting in the elections, then the registration of that party should be de-recognized or deregistered. Okay. The next is growing money power. Growing money power. Political parties, they spend a lot of money during elections. So for that, what is the solution? Ceiling on election expenditure. What do you mean by ceiling here? Limiting. Limiting on election expenditure. Okay, we know that large amount of money is spent during elections. So the Election Commission of India took various steps to cut this money power. Okay, so it has appointed expenditure observers. The Election Commission will appoint expenditure observers who will observe how much a political party is spending in campaigning. And they have also limited the expenditure. So they have also imposed expenditure limit. Then use of caste and religion in elections. Okay. So the Election Commission will disqualify the candidate from contesting the elections if he is trying to promote any caste or religion during the elections. If a person who is contesting for the elections during election campaigning, if he is promoting a particular caste or religion, then that candidate will get disqualified. He cannot contest the elections. Then the electoral photo ID cards, identity cards. Electoral photo identity cards. This was introduced to prevent bogus voting. Every voter who is going to vote should carry his photo identity card. So this will prevent bogus voting, false voting. Then model code of conduct. The Election Commission of India has formulated certain guidelines to be followed by the political parties and the candidates during the electoral process. So these guidelines are known as model code of conduct. These guidelines are known as model code of conduct. Okay. So this was electoral reform. So this question was asked in your previous paper. Write about electoral reforms in India. So there are 5. That is, stopping the criminals from contesting the elections, deregistering the political parties who are giving tickets to the criminals, then limiting the election expenditure, appointing expenditure observers, okay, then disqualifying the candidate who is using caste and religion, okay, for coming into power. Then electoral photo identity cards, which is compulsory for the voters to carry with them when they go for voting. So this is to prevent bogus voting. And model code of conduct, these are the guidelines issued by the Election Commission for the political parties and the candidates during the elections. Okay, so these were some of the questions, unexpected questions, which can appear sometimes. So you should know these answers.